Oh, here we
Oh,
go. Can
okay.
everybody hear me well? Okay, good. Good. Sorry. It wasn't quite plugged in. Okay, good. So let's start out with the meditation. So find a comfortable seated posture. Lengthening through the top of the head, relaxing the spine, deepening our breath, perhaps all the way down to our sit bones. And today I'd like to focus with the breath and kind of with an attitude of cutting through to clarity. So the breath is a useful tool because it can help us cut through any of the mist, the clouds that may be in our mind. It sharpens the focusing aspect of consciousness. So let's take some time allowing our breath to deepen and fill our upper lungs, middle lungs, bottom lungs, through the diaphragm, perhaps down to the belly. And be present with the exhales and feel the contact as it goes through each of these sections. Give yourself 3, perhaps 6 breaths, somewhere between that, to find where today do you feel the contact of the breath greatest, or what is presenting to you today? Perhaps your upper chest, perhaps around the heart region or diaphragm, maybe deep down in the abdomen. Wherever it is that you're breathing is most accessible, the sensations of the breath most accessible. Sometimes these sensations of the breath may be presenting an area that is more constricted, sometimes more free. See what your attention is drawing to you today. And then choosing that area that is drawing your attention. Allow yourself just to rest in that. Be present, accepting. Clarity is simply an unclouded presence. So without judgment, labeling, or naming what you're experiencing, just be with it. Perhaps the first encounter with this sensation on a more mind level allows us to see just a basic reaction to it. Is it in the realm of being pleasant? Is it in the realm of being unpleasant? Or perhaps neutral, neither. Just notice that. Being accepting, whatever spectrum it is. There's a large zone of experience for our phenomenon, the sense objects, and the way that we perceive them. and react to them. Notice as you're observing it, does it change? Maybe there's some pleasantness and unpleasantness, or vice versa. So allowing ourselves just to observe for a few more breaths. And then perhaps letting the breath deepen again, starting to feel more areas besides this spot that is called to us. And slowly with the next few breaths, inviting ourselves back to presence in our teaching space here. Wonderful. So welcoming everybody to class. Looks like some of us don't want to come out of meditation. It feels good, huh? Yeah, it wouldn't be bad. We could meditate for the whole class. Okay. So let's talk about today's class. This is class 8 in our 10 of this clinical assessment. Today's focus, and it's something we've done a lot of, is Agni, Ama, and Mala Vijnanam. So refining how we're going to be working with clients with these. Okay, and we've already, like I said, we've covered Agni quite a bit, Ama quite a bit. But now let's fine tune this and take it kind of to the deepest level for us. And today with this, I want to also, you probably have access to your intake forms and Rugana Patrikam forms. So like the intake and session forms. And I'm going to be referring to those. I'll probably be using my version, which is similar or exactly the same as what you have. And we'll be referring to those so that we can start linking our mind with the form. So when we're using that with clients, we'll be like, oh, okay, these are the questions I ask around this subject. Okay, and I'll be teaching really progressive classes from that kind of aspect also. A couple of different things that we're going to touch into besides reviewing Agni. I want to kind of go into detail of all the different types of Agnis because I want to talk about mental digestion a little bit more. Last class we talked about Manas Vikruti Prakruti, but today I want to use that same knowledge, but think about like what can go wrong in the Manavaha Shrotas. Okay, with mental digestion, and look at Agni in that aspect because we've done a lot of looking at Agni on the physical aspect. Now I want to switch the focus a little bit or concentrate on the mind too with this class, and that's somewhat fresh from last class too. And then we're going to talk about Ama, review it a little bit, but then talk again about Ama and the Agnis and kind of the prime causes of Ama. Okay, so take it into more clinical level about what we're looking for and questions. What are we going to be asking about Ama? And what are we going to be looking at with Ama with doshas or without, or doshas without Ama? So doshas can be increased, decreased, or dushti with or without Ama. It's called Sama dosha or Nirama dosha. So we're going to look at that. And then we're going to switch our focus into examination of stool or parisha, mutara, urine, and sveda, sweat. Okay, so the 3 excretory capabilities of our body, because that's a really key piece when we're thinking about Agni and Ama. That's going to be a really key piece of questions that we're going to be targeting and asking to determine the functioning of not only our Agni, but also like is Amma present. Okay, so that's going to be entailed in this whole class. I'd like to start out before that, though, about questions and answers from the last section, as well as your homework assignments, namely pulses. Okay, I gave you a little tidbit into pulses last time, so I want to see what you've come up with that. And I'm going to keep giving you assignments that deal with that. And as well as Manas Prakriti Vikruti, if you have any questions about that, and also I, if you have any questions with the I analysis. And of course, any of the Ashtavidya Pariksha, anything you just want to speak about with that. So class is open for questions. Yeah, Heidi.
With the pulse,
Mhm.
I'm guess I'm having problem figuring out like how much pressure to put on with my fingers, because I think I read in the book that there's two. You do like a surface pulse and then a deeper pulse is for the deeper organs. So I'm a little.
There's 7 basic levels actually. so but with that being said, that's not where you want to go right yet, and it's gonna be impossible to do that. I'm glad you mentioned it because here's another layer. So go ahead, everybody try this. Grab one of your wrists and bring your fingers again below the kind of bone nodule of the ulna here. Okay, so right under that. 3 fingers relatively close together, and see if you can feel the lightest possible touch, just enough to feel your pulse on all 3 fingers. Try that. Okay, that would be the highest level, which corresponds with your Vikruti. Okay. At this point, I'd like to say just Prakriti Vikruti right now. Let's just keep it at that. That's the simplest. But if you switch your focus and with your intention, it's really more your Vikruti. But that's relevant to what you want to work with anyways. Now,
so the one you feel is strongest is your Vikruti?
no. You just stay with me. All 3 fingers right now. All 3 fingers. Okay, so just getting a sense of what all 3 fingers combined tell you. Let's keep it with that. Let's keep it with that because there's a lot more detailed on the rabbit hole, but we're gonna get there step by step. Now, everybody feel under all 3 fingers something going on? It may be slightly different some things, but something going on. Yeah.
I can't feel it under the ring finger. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the cuff, I can't feel it. I can feel.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So don't even worry about Vata Pitta Kapha right now. Just simply, can you feel anything with that ring finger? If you can't, move the finger medially and laterally, just towards the center of your wrist and towards, just play around, maybe even go slightly deeper. Oftentimes we don't press as deep with that finger. Or see the pulse, that it's not exactly straight with a bone. It can kind of go like this. It can go underneath some tendons, things like that. Yeah, you got it now? So first calibrate all 3 fingers to allow them to feel something, okay? So that's step 1. And just as light touch as you can. Okay. Now, this is a little more challenging. I'm going to ask you now to press all 3 fingers. Try to do it evenly down until you make your pulse go away. That's going to be relatively hard for some of you, as far as pressure-wise, hard pressure, until the pulse goes away. Now, what may happen is it'll go away for a brief second, then it's going to start pounding kind of up. So make it go away and lift just slightly enough that you feel under all 3 fingers pulse again. Try it a few times until you kind of get that. So it's like cutting off your pulse. So what I would say is go down slowly until it goes away, and then it's going to kind of start beating again and feel it under all 3 fingers. Bye, Rafaela. Are we there? Can we kind of cut it off and then you feel under 3 fingers? when you just slightly lift up, that would be your deepest pulse, which is more associated with Prakruti. So I'll give you another homework. I'd like you this next week, along with the other things I'll be asking you when you get it uploaded on your assignments, is to practice this. Practice doing surface and practice doing deep and compare them. Just take notes comparing the qualities and what you feel. Okay, don't get too much into any other details, just quality feel. Like, does one seem to be more like the deep one? Is it more like your constitution? Is the top one more like your Vikruti in quality, right? And either being like a cobra or more pitta, like frog bouncing, or swan, or a combination thereof. Just observe, okay? Just right now, just observe and see what you find. Okay, as well as when you work with other people, try on other people, quite a few other people, try to occlude their pulse. That means making it go away, go deep, and then slightly up just so you feel that deeper pulse, and then go to the surface level and the lightest level of pulse. Just start comparing those two, okay? So good. Any other questions? Again, about pulse, Manas, Prakriti, Vikruti.
Do you use the eye analysis a lot in your practice?
I look at the eyes in general, like the outer mandalas. I used to do iridology quite a bit. I used to have magnifying glass and go in there, but not so much. And occasionally I'll pull it out if I want to kind of double check a few things or reconfirm, but not as much as I used to. Ideally, I'd love to have an iridology scope that could take a picture of the iris and lay it on a chart. That's really the way to go. And it's simple, quick, and easy, but very expensive to get one of those. So, but it's a nice tool. I have friends that have that, and it's great. It's a great another diagnostic method. I wouldn't mind blood drawing too, but there's a lot of stuff I'd love to have available to me.
I didn't delve into the information about the eye analysis so much. I read over it, and then I felt like it was just going to be too much to even try to go there for me right now.
It's fine. That's fine. And again, you have to choose your battles at this current moment about what you're going to use, and then expand that over time. We're showing you a huge, broad spectrum of what's possible. Okay, and it's up to you. These are all just helpers. And you can call in your helpers as when you need. And someday, maybe one day, you're just going to really get into a certain type of analysis, like iridology. Maybe it's like, hey, let me study this and let me get into this and integrate it, and then it'll just be another helper. Same as like tongue. Maybe you'll really get into tongue diagnosis, and that'll be the key thing, that corresponds. Again, pulse, whatever. Okay, so don't feel like you have to know it all. It's just have the knowledge that exists and play around with it for a little bit. Okay.
I have a question about the tongue. How
Yeah.
do you tell the difference between just a pale tongue and a tongue that actually has ama coating, like the white coating?
Yeah. Well, good question. So the coating is on top of the tongue. It can be scraped off. You can't scrape off a pale tongue. Pale is the body itself, the actual like skin color of the tongue, let's say. Whereas the coating is a coating. It is a coating. It's on top of your papillae, and it's like this caked on stuff. Okay. So it is different. Okay? So it's kind of like a wood floor, and then the milk spilled on the wood floor. All right. So once you clean that up, then you see underneath it. Great. Anybody else? Good questions. Anybody else about last week's stuff? Manas? Okay. Great. Then let me move on. And I would love to be able to see y'all too. I only see Heidi. So it'd be nice to have people's faces here. No worries. You can be in any old place. You can be outdoors, walking around, whatever. Let's begin with Agni. And then I'll kind of progressively go to Ama, and we'll go down to different things. So a quick review, and I'm going to be asking you some questions here because, again, I've covered this many times. So let's see what we remember. So what are the main types of Agni. And what I mean here is not just like Vishama, Tikshana, Manda, all that. I know you know that. But just Agnis. What are the main, what are the 13 key Agnis? And then let's go on from there.
The Bhuta Agnis.
Yeah, that's 5 Bhuta Agnis. What are the Bhuta Agnis?
Bhuta. The enzymes
Where?
that help in the liver,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
that help with digestion.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the Bhuta Agnis correspond to the 5 elements. Because in
Yeah.
Ayurveda, they don't know the word enzyme, right? So it's 5 elements, the materials that stuff is made out of. They work upon these molecular 5 elements to break them apart
Yeah.
and then form them into the astai dhatu, essentially, into the precursor nutrition for each dhatu. Right. I like to,
Yeah.
I gave an example. I was teaching a class a month ago that it'd be nice to share with you too, is when you eat food, your Jatara Agni, from here down to the colon, works upon it first. Okay. There's many Agnis in it. There's like Bodhaka Agni. There's all kinds of different organ Agnis and so on. But generically, we can just call it Jatara Agni. Jatara Agni breaks the food down into bits that can go through your portal hepatic system, basically the bloodstream from your intestines into your liver. Once they get to the liver, it's kind of like, here's an example. The farm is your intestinal tract, or your digestive tract, and Jatar Agni are the farmers. They gather up the vegetables, everything like that, and then they send them on a truck to the market. The liver is the market, but it's a little bit beyond the market. The liver is the market place, but it's also the place that the chefs, the cooks choose the ingredients and say, I'm going to use this carrot, this zucchini, and these spices and this oil to make a curry. And this curry is going to be Rasa Dhatu's curry. And then I'm going to choose celery and onions, and that's going to be the Asti Dhatu curry, so on and so on. Okay. So what are these vegetables? These are the elements that are coming out of food that's broken down in the Jatara Agni. The liver then makes a specific meal, or at least chooses the particular foods that are agreeable to our dhatus, each and every dhatu, and it processes it into a special meal for each dhatu. And then this gets sent through our bloodstream. It spreads through our bloodstream to every cell in our body. The liver has an amazing job of making something that they all like. Anybody who has kids probably knows exactly what I'm talking about, because you can't cook one meal for the family, right? I mean, some of you are probably wise enough to have somehow trained them to do that, but my wife never let me do them on the starvation diet and force them to eat it. But so we basically have to cook 4 different meals every single meal, right? So it's how it is, it's like they're so picky, it's horrible. But anyways, it's kind of like the liver's job. It's like the mom or the dad's job to like, okay, I have 4 different dhatus or however many different dhatus sitting around here, and they all want something totally different. What am I going to do? There's one meal we went grocery shopping, and we brought home this bag of food. From this bag of food, how are we going to make special meals that each one's going to want to eat? And that's what your liver does. That's what the Bhuta Agnis do.
I love that analogy. It's beautiful.
It hits home if you have kids, right? It's like
and to refresh, the 3 main ones are the Jatari, the Bhuta, and the Dhatu.
Yes. So, and that actually makes 13 of them, right? Because you have Jatara 1, 5 Bhuta Agnis 6, and then the 7 Dhatu Agnis, right? Okay. That's the most basic. Now, that gets food into our tissues, but what are our tissues comprised of? What makes the tissue? And this is more like a Western idea, because in Ayurveda they didn't have microscopes that early on. So, but they did have knowledge that there's stuff in our tissues. Our tissues are made out of cells, right? Yeah. So that essentially all our tissues are made out of cells. And guess what? Those are specific cells, right? They're specialized cells. There's not generic cells like everything. Every cell in our body has a specialized function. And every cell in our body has an affinity because of its specialized function towards a certain tissue. So there's Rasa Dhatu cells, there's Rakta Dhatu cells, blood cells, so on. There's Mamsa, there's muscle cells, there's fat cells, there's so on and so on and so on cells, right? So we have all kinds of cells, and they're grouped in via Ayurveda as well as Western anatomy into different tissues. Right? That's the collective of cells, specialized cells, thus form a tissue. And then certain tissues combine to form collectives called organs and systems and so on, right? Like organs and then shrotas. So this is how Western cellular anatomy goes into with Ayurveda. Now, Ayurveda knew about cells because they have a very special Agni of the cell. What's the Agni of the cell wall? Welcome. So this will be your question, Anne. What's the Agni of the cell wall? She's like, oh my God, what do I get myself into? No, see what we can find as a class.
Is it one of the Bhuta Agnis?
No, that's the liver. That's what we were just talking about.
Okay.
We went over the 13 basic Agnis. I'm just reviewing with y'all.
'Cause I
There's
have-
Jatara, Bhuta, the 5 Bhutas, and then 7 Dhatus. But now, even deeper, once we have tissues are made up of cells. So what's the Agni of the cell wall?
Pilu.
Rasa.
Yes, Pilu. And we might as well go a step further. What's the Agni inside the cell of the nucleus that allows
Pitara.
Pitara. Okay, so Pilu in
Pitara.
Pitara. Very important here. Okay, so again, this isn't often talked about in Ayurveda, but I want you all to start thinking about this now because Pilu Pitara complete the chain of matter into consciousness, the digestion of matter into consciousness, as we'll see when I get to mental digestion in a moment, the reverse too, consciousness into matter. Okay, so Pilu Pak, Pilu Agni, is the Agni of the cell wall. Each individualized cell, whether it's specialized for this tissue or that tissue or whatever, every cell has Pilu Agni. And that, why? Because the cell wall is important to maintain, but it needs to get nourished. Stuff has to go through the cell wall, get transformed into food for the organelles, like the mitochondria and all that stuff, okay? But then finally, there's one more barrier, and that barrier is the nucleus. And that is what gets let through that Agni or gets specially transformed by that Agni goes to our DNA and RNA. That is the deepest level of our organism on a physical state, and that is the bridge to the mind, the manas. Okay? So let's hold that thought. I'll get back to that in just a little bit later when we get into mental digestion. Let me ask another question about Agni. What are the gunas of Agni? Okay, so if we're thinking clinically, we need to know, first of all, what are the 4 types of disruptions of Agni? Okay, and I know you know that. We need to know about what Agnis we're thinking about assessing and targeting, right? That's going to be important too, because that's where disease will start, right? Going to be roots of disease, and that's going to be key for treatment. Anything you give a person is going to be basically doing Agni Chikitsa, Agni treatment, right? That's healthcare is Agni treatment. The next thing though is, what are the gunas of Agni? Because if we don't know the gunas of Agni, we don't know how to make Agni better or what makes it worse. So, gunas of Agni, go for it.
Oh, sharp.
Hot.
Hot.
Yep. Sounding like Pitta, isn't it? Sharp, hot. There's more.
Is it mobile?
Not really, but does it have some sort of movement quality? It's not mobile. If it was, that would make it Vishma, right? I'm going to use this as a teaching lesson. So if you add mobility to Agni, that becomes Vishma Agni. All over the place. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. It's basically like going into a fire. It's going to blow all around. Okay. It could feed it, but it could put it out too, right?
So the mobility of Agni is transformation, right?
Yeah, but there is a guna. It's in the Pitta category that Agni does have. It's the
Spreading.
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 Why and now before I go into that, let's name a few other gunas because that's a kind of a cool and that's important to talk about. That's a particular one. So what other qualities? So you got hot and you
Sour.
got what's that?
Sour? That's more of a taste. But
Light.
Oh, sour. Yeah, a little sour taste. I can go with that. Light, yes. So hot, sharp, light.
Permeable.
What's that?
Or spreading, sorry, spreading.
Yeah, spreading. Yeah, we got that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a couple.
oily? No.
No,
No.
right? And we'll talk about why. Now, how about subtle? Is it subtle? Yeah, definitely subtle. And is it wet or dry?
Wet? No, because fire.
I would say dry.
Yeah. Okay. So these are the keystone qualities. So up to now, it's pretty much Pitta. But
Yeah.
what makes the difference between Agni and Pitta is the element, water. Pitta has water element. It has a medium of water element. Thus, it has the spreading and it has liquid quality, right? It has oily quality.
Yeah.
Agni does not. Right? Agni is dry. However, it has the spreading quality only in the essence that it spreads in the digestive system. It needs to spread to make contact every surface area for digestion. So it tags on to the liquid quality of Pitta, but it is not that. It actually uses Kapha, it uses the Kledaka Kapha. The spreading quality of Agni tags onto the Kledaka Kapha, which spreads and touches into everything. Okay, that's how enzymes work with increased surface area and digestive mucosal barriers and so on. Okay, so that's a cool little piece there. It's one of the first times I've ever seen it even described with spreading quality, but on page 188 of your book, it talks about that. All right, so it's a really nice way. So hot, dry, sharp, light, subtle, spreading, and fragrant, or it has like a little sourish, let's say. Okay, so those are the gunas of Agni. If you want to boost Agni, those are the gunas you want to boost. Okay, if you want to dampen Agni, then those are the gunas you want to do the opposite to. So very, very, very important to kind of keep that. And I think the easiest way to remember is it's Pitta without the water. Okay, so that would mean it's dry, not wet. Right? It would mean that it has a spreading, but it doesn't have that liquid quality, let's say. Okay, everybody got that? Okay, so those should be memorized. It's important for you to at least have that concept. It's Pitta without the water in your head at all times when you're dealing with Agni, because whatever you're using has to reflect that. Now, next is the signs and symptoms of Agni disturbance. Okay, so now how are we going to recognize if we have Samagni, if we have Vishma, Tikshna, or Manda Agnis? Okay, this is now the key. So let's get into kind of like the subject matter here. So let's start with Vishma Agni, or actually, sorry, Vishma's. Let me clarify something before I get here, and just to help you out. There's many layers of knowledge that goes into Agni. And this is something that's even been confusing to me when I was a student. And that I had to it took me quite a few years to really just figure out what are they all talking about here? Because if you look in the book, and oftentimes it's presented, you either have good digestion or you have indigestion, right? That's kind of dualistic. It's not like 3 different kinds of Agni, right? So that's one level of confusion. Raise your hand if you've been confused by that. Yeah, okay, that's a common place, right? So there's signs of indigestion, which is a great big list. And then there's signs of good digestion. It's the opposite. It's basically if everything's going well or things aren't going so well. Now, the Agnis were created to reflect how the doshas affect the Agni. Let's keep that in mind. That's a very important point. And because of that, what is reality? Reality is that oftentimes we're not affected just by one dosha or one guna of a dosha, right? We're affected by a couple and many gunas, maybe even all 3 gunas from all 3 doshas, with maybe 1 or 2 being predominant. That's reality. Thus, that's why the idea of digestion or indigestion fits conveniently, because either you're having problems or you're not. So that's one level, is to determine, is someone having digestive problems or not? Okay, step 1. Okay, and the reason I make that important is you're going to encounter a lot of clients who are like, oh yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I don't have any problems eating stuff. And then you kind of look in it and stuff like, oh yeah, well I take omeprazole for my acid indigestion. I've been doing 10 years, I'm fine. And when was the last time you pooped? Oh, I don't know, a couple days ago. And it's like, oh yeah, no, it's, it's okay. I go pretty regularly. So believe me, I've encountered so many clients that believe they have perfect digestion, and then you find out all the different things they're on to make that perfect digestion happen, right? So they don't have the perfect digestion. So we have to, when someone responds with, oh yeah, my digestion is good, you have to really look at what are the signs of good digestion. Like, what is Sama Agni? Well, first of all, it's without the aid of any substance. You have good digestion. That's key. Okay, that's the first thing you got to check on. See what they're taking, because what they're taking usually affects their digestion first and foremost. Okay, and oftentimes doctors give medications with that in mind. It's like, well, let me tinker with their Agni or with their digestion while I'm helping their cholesterol and things like that. Okay. So first of all, being clear about that. Now, second is, at the root cause, what doshas are causing Agni disturbance? Okay, and now when we're talking about Vishma, Tikshna, and Manda, let's start with just the Jatara Agni first, okay? Because we know that can happen to any Agni, right? Those doshic disturbances or combos of those doshic disturbances can happen at any Agni. Right? But generally, we're going to start out with simple physical food digestion. So when you look at the gunas of Vata, when you look at the gunas of Pitta, when you look at the gunas of Kapha, and then apply the possibility of those gunas affecting the gunas of Agni, that's when you get those 3 different states of digestion. Like I said, it's not usually or not always just simply, Tikshna Agni or Manda Agni. It's sometimes a combination of it, or gunas that overlap for them. Okay, so keeping that in mind, let's go ahead and look at the straight types of Agni, the variation. Okay, so let's start with, if you look at them in general, Manda Agni, I like to start with that one because that's pretty much what we mean by indigestion most of the time, right? Agni is low. Okay, it's getting hampered. So that's pretty straight, like indigestion. Tikshna Agni is kind of weird because Tikshna Agni is high. Now, does that mean you're eating through everything and everything's digesting awesomely? No, and that's the tricky part is because when you think that the Agni side, it's like, hey, you should be able to eat a horse or a car and everything's fine, right? No. No, no, no. That would be, super Samagni, like Yogi Samagni, right? But Tikshna Agni is an imbalanced state. It's indigestion, but of an high Agni sort. And the image is that the fire is so hot that it burns everything to ash, but the ash just sits there, right? So it has a lot of characteristics of Manda Agni. You're basically having indigestion. Whereas Manda is slow Agni. It has that slow quality of Kapha. Pitta does not have a slow quality, does it? It's all about fast. Or, in this case, the Tikshna Agni, rock in your stomach. So if someone often has kind of like burping, belching, and like a feeling of heaviness in the stomach, like a rock, the digestion just stops, that's Tikshna Agni. Okay? And it's elusive because what's associated with Tikshna Agni is on the bottom end, diarrhea, right? Or loose stools. So how does something that stops digestion then end up diarrhea? Okay, interesting. But these are, we'll get to little details of that later, but those are characteristics of Tikshna Agni. And then there's Vishama Agni, which is very much characterized by that mobile quality. Like we're speaking about mobility in Agni. Well, when you apply mobile, then you get Vishama. That's irregularity. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. In the morning, it's okay. In the evening, it's bad. Right? Sometimes you have appetite, sometimes you don't. It's that variability. Okay, so those are the key gunas, key characteristics of the Agnis. But then there's more. Okay, there's, we can now separate them into like different aspects and questions that we ask. Okay, I'm going to encourage you all to begin with just trying to try to just like shoot for what is the best Agni that you can find. Because yes, people are going to have 2 or more doshas involved. You're going to run into that. But oftentimes you can succeed very well if you just target one type of Agni and stick with that for a little and then later refine it. Okay, that's a lesson I've learned. Like for some time I was trying to get all the little details in there. And then I've more recently I've come back into just being like, is it more like Vishama? Is it more like Tikshna? Is it more like Manda? And let's treat for that. And oftentimes that works like a charm. And you may need to tweak it in the end, but you get such good results that sometimes you don't even need to do much. The body can bring it back. And I think that's the beauty of this, is that Ayurveda wisely created formulas for these types of Agnis that really take into place the reality of what people really go through. And it's close enough that it really makes a good enough difference to really start the healing process. So let's, I don't know if all of you will have this, but if you happen to have the book in front of you, there's a table number 52 in your appendix of this book, and it's pages 340, 41, 42. Dr. Ladd made a beautiful chart, okay? That's a good study chart. And it's basically called Clinical Observations of the 4 Conditions of Agni. And it's a nice cheat sheet or study guide for you so that you can like look at, oh, if I ask them about appetite and they respond this way, it helps me determine what it is. Okay?
What page, sorry?
It starts on page 340 in your appendices of your book, volume 2. Everybody got that? Some of you may not have the book, so.
I have it, but mine starts on 342.
Oh, okay, probably different versions, so that's fine. Yeah, but it's table 52, clinical observations of the 4 conditions of Agni. Right? So if you're looking at that, or if you're not, I'm going to go over a bit of it. I'm not going to go over everything, but I'm going to go over some key questions. So first of all, the first question, if you look at our Rugna Patrikam, let me go ahead and pull that up so you can take a quick look so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is like a model Rugna Patrikam. Everybody see that? Yeah? Okay. So I'm going to go down here. So this is what I also call our initial session form. Okay. Here is the section about, let me just cut it off right there so it's pretty clear. Here's the section, the bottom section there is the section about Agni, essentially, okay? And about diet. So the first thing on the list is appetite, right? Appetite is a great starting point, and you're questioning about Agni, and your prashna, questioning about it. So if someone has Manda Agni, what do you think the answer is going to be?
No appetite.
Well, no, or just, yeah, a little bit. I eat a little bit.
Irregular.
Yeah, I just eat a little bit, you know, or so on. Or yeah, I eat some meals, but you know, you can tell they're not super into it. Right? It's just low, right? So low could be gone. Maybe, and oftentimes, what we want to really question clients is like, oftentimes like, oh yeah, I know I have a good appetite. How many times a day do you eat? So number of meals a day. That's the next thing on Dr. Lott's list. So, oh, they're like, oh yeah, no, I eat daily. Yeah, I have 1 or 2 meals. Well, if you only have 1 or 2 meals, you definitely have a low appetite. Okay. Now, a Pitta person, if you ask them, right? Oh yeah, I have a good appetite. You know, there's no doubt about it. They're always hungry, right? You know, if they have Tikshna Agni, yeah, it can be unbearable. And I always follow up. What happens if you miss a meal? Pitta people, I don't know because that's never happened. You know? It's like I attacked the person next to me that had food on the plate, right? So, and then if you ask how many meals a day, it's usually 3 plus. You know, they all have their 3 solid meals and then snacks if they need it too. So that's a sign of Tikshna Agni. Now, what about the Vata person? What about someone with Vishama Agni? It depends on what day you ask. Oh yeah, I have a good decent appetite. Well, what happens if you miss a meal? It's fine. You know, I usually, you know, I skip breakfast or dinner often, or, you know, there you go. That's the Vishama Agni. It's irregular. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. And sometimes they're not going to tell you that. Sometimes they'll, and sometimes they will, right? So that's that variability. Now, one thing with Vishma Agni that's similar to Tikshna Agni is oftentimes people snack for meals. They're just like snacking, eating all the time. You know, and it's often like nervous type of eating. Okay, they may not even have much of an appetite, but they're just kind of eating, right? And not very conscious of it. Again, a very Vata-like diet. Now, quantity of food, it's always good to ask. Someone Manda Agni is probably only going to eat a small amount of food because they know if they eat more, it's just going to sit there. They just can't digest it. They can kind of eat a little small amount of food and they'll be okay. Pitta people, they like to overeat. Tikshna Agni, it's just this tendency of wanting to overeat. Vishma Agni is much more irregular, sometimes small, sometimes larger, depends how they feel, depends how much they snacked a few minutes ago, this and that. Okay, so that's a characteristic. And then cravings is an interesting question. Okay, craving and also snacking of food. So on the list here, oftentimes, I mean, Dr. Lott puts down the assumption that someone still has healthy cravings. Okay, if that's still true, then people with Vishma Agni will crave for what balances that. Spicy, dry, salty, those are all Agni building tastes. Tikshna Agni will do the opposite when they want to tone down their Agni a little bit. Sweets, bitters, astringents, right? Pitta balancing tastes. And Manda Agni will be more like hot, spicy, stimulating foods, or more than likely what got them in the problem in the first place is lots of sweets and heavy foods, right? So for, you know, you have to determine too if they're doing emotional eating or if they still have like only a low stage of samprapti, the first 2 stages before the cravings start getting vitiated. Now, thirst goes along with Agni. That usually corresponds. Someone Manda, not very thirsty or avoids it, doesn't drink a lot of water. Vata is irregular. You know, they may have a 60-ounce bottle, but they don't drink any one day. They drink it all the next day. Pitta generally has a lot of thirst. Okay. And then let's talk about the next question on here is digestion. Okay. So what I like on the form here, I've listed what I feel are kind of like the key pieces. So digestion, energy level, and appetite. So digestion, and it's good to clarify what we mean here because there's many different questions that fall into this. So the first question would be just in general, you know, what's their digestion like? Is it variable? Is it quick? Does it feel like a rock in the stomach, or is it slow? If it's like, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. I get gas. I get symptoms sometimes, but not always. That's a very good sign of Vishma. Now, for Manda, it's really just chronically slow. Right? The digestion feels like it just takes forever to get through me. With Pitta, it could go one way or the other. It could go either I just feel like I ate a meal and 2 hours later I'm hungry again, or I eat so much or I eat so little, but it just feels like a stone in my stomach, and then I get like indigestion and acid reflux and stuff like that. So Tikshna Agni can go either way. That's a very important piece of Tikshna Agni. Okay, you got to see is the Tikshna being caused because remember Tikshna is not exactly Agni. It's Pitta, so it's fire and water or water. If it's more the fire element that's being present with the person, then they'll burn through their food and feel like they're hungry in a few more minutes. If it's the water element, then it'll flood out the food and make it hard to digest, so it'll sit in their stomach. Everybody hanging in with that?
Yeah, I just am confused then. So if it's Vishma Agni, wouldn't that apply as well or not? Wouldn't it be like you burn through food one day and you're still hungry?
No. The burn through food would be the Tikshna aspect, whereas the Vishma it'd be more like, I can digest a meal pretty well one day, and next day it just doesn't seem like it, or the next few days, I have these days I just can't digest it. It's random. But the Tikshna is going to be the burn through the food and I need another meal. Or it's like a rock. You know, like I'm hungry, I want to eat, and I keep eating, but it's like a rock. Okay? It's kind of extremes. Again, Pitta is like that. It's fire or water. It's different. Okay?
I used to have that. My family called me a hobbit because I'd eat like 4 or 5 times a day.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I have Tikshna Agni too. I know what it feels like. Totally. So yes, that's another quality of it. So under digestion, you have to ask that. And then the next question on digestion is symptoms of digestion. Like, what are your symptoms? And that's where we start getting into differentiating much more clearly. So for Manda, and this is related to the energy level after eating, okay? So the energy level after eating is an important question is what do you feel like? Like after someone with Manda Agni feels drowsy or sleepy or has a drop in energy after eating. Someone with Vishma Agni, again, sometimes I feel energy, depends what I eat. They often say, depends what I eat. You know, it's like sometimes it'll go, and oftentimes it's like one day it's just like, I just feel tired after eat. Sometimes I feel there. If I eat at midnight, I feel some energy. I feel, this. It's kind of all over the place. Now, Tikshna can go either way. It either feel like, oh man, I just don't feel like I'm getting energy from the food. I just need to eat more and more. Or, I'm just kind of like, or it's even oftentimes. Okay. Or it could also be a drop. It just depends. It's variable too, but it's usually going to be consistently variable. Vishma is going to be all over the place, and it's going to change. Sometimes I have good energy, sometimes bad. The Pitta or the Tikshna is going to be whichever it is. It's going to be pretty steady, and Manda is going to be low energy. Okay, so symptoms for Manda Agni is a sense of heaviness, not like a rock necessarily in the stomach, but just a heaviness after food. You feel kind of drowsy, heavy. And it could be like a dull, aching pain, like a really minor pain in the digestive system, just discomfort. Symptoms that are common with Tikshna Agni are going to be the upper digestive system symptoms, which are usually nausea, maybe even like kind of burping up, acidity or kind of like hot flavor, sour flavor, vomitings occasionally, but mostly it's just that burping up, the acid reflux. Especially on a heavy meal kind of like want to come up. It's like the stomach, it burns and it sits like a rock, and then everything you put on top of it doesn't even fit in the stomach anymore. And there could be some pain also in the stomach area or kind of in the umbilical, the navel area. That's where they'll feel it a little bit more. And now the Vishama Agni, common symptoms will be, here's where you get that bloating, and where you get the kind of like gas, fullness in the flanks, mostly because of gas in the intestines, kind of prickly or vague moving pains, again due to gas oftentimes, and they'll get the bloating more in the lower abdomen region. Sometimes people with Manda Agni or Tikshna Agni will get a bloating in the upper, like it's a stomach area. Okay. So asking about the bloating and where it is helpful. And of course, peristalsis, the actual movement aspect of your intestines. Well, Manda is going to be slow. Tikshna is going to be, this is where oftentimes if it's the watery aspect of Tikshna, it's just going to be stopped. They're just not going to be, it's not going to be happening barely. Or if it's the fire aspect, it could be actually hyperperistalsis. It could go either way. They could, and then this is where they'll experience like, it feels like a rock in my stomach, but then they're going to have diarrhea. Your body's going to try to flush this undigested food out of there. Okay. Whereas Vishama has a very characteristic to it. Often it's like gurgling. You feel gurgling and movement in the abdomen, and it's hyperperistalsis. So they're not digesting well because it's getting through too fast. Even though they may be constipated in the end in their colon, but during in the intestines, it's probably going to go a little too fast and then get plugged up at the bottom end. So to review, and the confusion often comes between this Tikshna and the Vishama here, because Tikshna Agni gets congested in the front end. It gets blocked up in the stomach, the front end of digestion, and then it's loose in the bottom end. Whereas Vishama is gurgly, kind of hyper, let's say loose, in the front end and the middle, the intestines, but then gets blocked up in the colon because of the dryness, so on. Okay, and other gunas. I just want to have a little check. I'm going to come out of the share because those are the key questions. Brain break, are we hanging in with that? It's a lot of very detailed information.
It is. I just, to clarify on the cravings, the ones in the book, those are healthy cravings?
Yeah, those would be balancing cravings. You know, it's like.
Oh, all right. So
yeah.
Dry, salty foods?
Well, because that's exactly what you want to increase your Agni. Agni is dry.
Okay.
Yeah. So the salty, sour, hot, hot foods will all increase Agni. So
okay.
That's useful for Vishama.
Okay. So I have to like get the fact that it's Vata out of my mind, because then it was confusing me because it's dry. Vata is dry.
Yeah, and that's but that's also when you combine. Remember, these states of Agni are the doshic gunas combined with the gunas of Agni.
Okay.
That makes Vishma Agni. Vata doesn't make Vishma Agni. Vata with the gunas of Agni makes Vishma Agni. Yeah? Here's an exercise for you to do. Pull up each of the doshas gunas and pull up the gunas of Agni, add them together and see what you get. and then you get the Vishma, you get the Tikshna, and you get the Manda. You'll start seeing what like will increase like, and so on, and opposites will kind of nullify themselves, and you'll get the method behind the madness of all the symptomology. Okay, it's a good exercise to do. Okay, I'll let you, there's a lot more that you can look at, and some of this is kind of like silly, or just kind of like a lot of extra information on there, but it's a good table to look over. It gives you a lot of info. Now, one thing I would like to talk about is what are we going to do about those the three vitiated states? Sama, you don't need to do much, but I want to hear from you. How about some remedies? What do you think? And I'll add to it. So for Vishama Agni, what's some good things you can give to people?
As far as like ingesting something, not like a routine or anything.
Sure. Yeah.
Ginger.
What's that?
Ginger.
Yeah, ginger. Okay. Dry ginger, in fact, would be okay for them. Yeah, go ahead. Anne, did you have, or Carla?
Yeah. Routine.
Well, let's actually, for once, let's go into herbs. Let's go into cooking spices and things like that.
Black
What do you want?
Hing.
Hing, yeah, hing. Why? Because the classic formula in Ayurveda is called Hingvashtak Churna. That means hing and 8. The 8 other herbs and hing, or eight herbs, including hing being the main one. Hingvashtak Churna is the generic kind of hit it all for Vishama, and it works darn well. All right. How about something else?
Using spices like cumin, coriander.
Well, coriander is cooling. That's more for the pitta.
Okay.
Cumin's quite a good choice, though. Cumin is part of Hingashtak Churna.
Okay, yeah, because I thought it's good. Yeah, it helps with your digestion, so
it does. But now I want you to think about, of the three of cumin, coriander, fennel, the CCFT, which you're familiar with. The reason why they have CCF is because one for each dosha: cumin for vata, coriander for pitta, and fennel for vata too. Fennel is great for that too. But cumin is also very good for kapha too. Okay. The thing is, vata and kapha often on an agni level will get benefit from both. You can use remedies for either or. So for kapha or manda agni, often they give what's called trikatu, the three kind of spicy. Katu means pungents, the 3 pungents. Okay. So trikatu is basically black pepper, pipali, long pepper, and ginger, dry ginger. So that can work for vata too, but you're probably going to give a lot more for manda and less for vata, just enough to kind of get stimulated, because too much of that will go the opposite way with vata. Right? You have to just be a little more gentle. So that's trikatu. That's for the manda agni, but also is good for vata, but hingashtak is more classic for it. How about for pitta?
Coriander.
Yes.
Yeah, coriander, cilantro.
Okay, good.
Mint.
Mint, yeah, often to cool that heat down. Yep. And pitta is interesting. Let's look at another classical Ayurvedic formula that you're very familiar with, Triphala. Yeah, there's 3 herbs in Triphala. There's Haritaki, Amalaki, and Bibitaki. Haritaki is awesome for Vishwagni and for Vata. Okay, and constipation. Amalaki is great for Pitta and Tikshna Agni. And it's not so great for diarrhea, because it can be, but in small doses it's good for it. And Bibitaki is great for Manda Agni and Kapha. Okay, slow digestion. So that's another good piece. So the Triphala is if you understand that, CCF, Triphala, these are these convenient little formulas that are made with the 3 doshas in mind. Okay. Now there is a classical formula for Tikshna Agni, and it's called Avipatikar Churna. Okay, so Vishma Agni, Hingashtak Churna, Tikshna Agni, Avikapataka Churna, and Manda Agni, Trikatu. Those are the classicals. Now, what's convenient is, are y'all familiar with Banyan Botanicals? Yeah. So, and you know, of course, in the USA, they're like the key company. In Europe, you can probably get puka herbs, which is basically where they get all their stuff from is puka herbs, and that's Sebastian Pole in England. So in Europe, you can get that, and they'll have the same formulas because those are classical formulas. Banyan's Vata Digest formula. Anybody ever heard the Vata Digest, Pitta Digest, Kapha Digest? Yeah. Guess what? Vata Digest is Hingashtak Churna. Exactly. Banyan's Kapha Digest is Trikatu. Exactly. It's just those 3 herbs, nothing more. The only one that's kind of special is Pitta Digest is not Avipatakar. It contains some stuff in Avipatakar, but it's a kind of custom, sort of a CCF-ish formula that's designed for Pitta digestion. I use all 3 of these in my practice all the time with clients. And Pitta Digest, the Banyan Pitta Digest is lovely. It's my go-to for Pitta issues, essentially. Any kind of like Tikshna Agni issues, acid ingestion. It works like a charm. It's a great formula. And sometimes I use Avipatakar, but not always. I found that Avipatakar isn't as great for Tikshna Agni as it's claimed to be, or it just doesn't seem to work with more modern issues that I encounter. So the Banyan is a lovely formula. Anyways, we've delved into that, but as Ayurvedic wellness counselors, you're going to be okay to use these formulas and put them out there as long as you're pretty confident that they're showing those Vishma, Tikshna, and Manda Agni, those, then you can start working with kind of low doses of those formulas, and you're going to probably get some great results. Okay? Okay, so that's the piece I wanted to kind of go over about questions about Agni and getting familiar. So please look over that chart, study the chart, formulate, you know, we have the 3 key questions of appetite, digestion, and digestive symptoms, obviously, okay, and energy level after eating, okay. Then if you start asking about the diet, if you look at the, you know, the form again, it goes into diet, and you're going to already on an intake be asking about the diet, and you're going to ask people about diet. When you take a look at what they're eating on a diet, that's probably going to give you a good idea of where the gunas of those foods and qualities and tastes of those foods is going to steer them towards. And that's probably going to be issues that they're facing, right? If they're eating like heavy fried food all the time, they're probably going to get Manda Agni eventually. If they're eating like hot, spicy food, they're probably going to get Tikshna Agni. And Vishma, if they're just eating or snacking irregularly all over the place, they're probably going to get Vishma Agni, right? Right? So a little break. Any questions on that? Makes sense? Do you want me to clarify, add any more? Nope. You're well armed now to go out and start working with people on this level, okay? In a gentle, easy way, but you know, I'm going to be asking you in your homeworks to go ahead and start doing that. Start like asking people about their Agnis and start working with it. You know, you can try these little formulas if you're pretty reasonably confident about the Agni. You can start two to 3 pills with each meal is a good way to go. As far as dosages with these, it's not going to be too high of a dose, but it should be an effective enough dose. Okay.
I do have a question actually.
Yeah.
What if you have Vishma Agni and it's kind of irregular, but it's like tending more towards Pitta or Kapha type? Yeah. So like, for example, I have the Vishma, but like just the last couple of days, I've been getting some acid reflux symptoms. So it's kind of towards the Tikshna. So how do you?
What I would do is I would deal with the current situation. Now, oftentimes when I give people formulas and stuff like that, I often do short term. Or I'll give them like, you know, one of these side formulas, one of those Banyan formulas in conjunction with a formula. So what I mean by that though is essentially deal with the most current issue. If you're having acid reflux lately, I would go towards the Tikshna Agni. I would try like the Banyan Pitta Digest, for instance.
Okay.
For now. Once that's resolved, and then it starts going back to possibly your more classical Vishma kind of symptomology, then do the Hingashtak.
Okay.
Okay, try that, and you'll see what you do. You know, obviously, there is a deeper place to go. In the book, it talked about how someone can have a combination of those, and that's reality. So, you know, if you were seeing me, for instance, I would customize something in between those two to deal with Vishma and Tikshna. So we
Okay.
kind of deal with both at the same time. Like, for instance, in a constitutional formula, I may give you a King Ashtak, but then I may just supplement with Pitta Digest on top of that. And then once you're done with that, I'll increase the Ashtak in your constitutional formula. Okay, just techniques.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So let's address mental Agni. Okay, Manas or Manaspak. Okay. So if you remember the different aspects of the mind, you know, the di, driti, smriti, and we talked about buddhi, ahamkar, and all that stuff last time. I'm not expecting you to have it all memorized. I'm going to refresh you here, but nonetheless, just if we go back into that realm. So, yes, we eat food and we survive on food, but that's not enough. Right? We need social interaction. We need relationship. We need community. We need to interact with the world. And our sense organs, you know, only one of them is dedicated to eating food. I mean, you know, smell too, but the rest of them are eating the world for us, right? That's the whole point of sense organs, is to eat the world. Right? That's what we're doing. We're interacting with it. We're digesting the world, our sense impressions of it. So with mental digestion, you can have issues at many levels. It could be an issue with D, it could be with Driti, could be with Smriti. Or what are the key pieces of Manavaha Shrotas, and especially subdoshas related to that? We have Prana, as for the Vata piece. We have Sadaka Pitta for the Pitta piece, and we have Tarpaka Kapha for the Kapha piece. Right? How do they all work? Well, Prana draws us to the sense objects through our senses. Our five senses in mind draws us to the sense objects. Sadaka processes, judges, processes, figures out what the heck the sense object is. Tarpaka remembers it. Okay, it imprints it on our memory so we can identify it again, and so on. Okay, and that corresponds to D, the ability to focus, Driti, the ability to process information, and Smriti, the ability to recall information. You see how those go together? Prana, Sadaka, Tarpaka, D, Driti, Smriti. Okay? Again, Ayurveda gives these lovely triples to memorize things with. So, the key Agnis, okay, when we're talking about digestion, we start talking about Agnis. The key Agnis of the mind are twofold. And they're kind of the same, or you could say that one is the container and one's the content. Manas Agni, that's the overall Agni of your mind. Okay? And remember, mind's a tool, that's not you. In Ayurveda, we recognize that we have a consciousness, right? That's contained, you know, mind is just a tool, it's a sense organ, let's say. It's the sixth sense organ. It's a field that experiences occur. It's a tool that kind of like allows experiences to happen, kind of like your ear, say, but mental, emotional experiences. So that's Manas. Manas has Agni in itself. And then there's Sadaka Agni that sits within the Manas. Right? So that's kind of the content, and the Manas is the container. Now these Agnis, the Sadaka and Manas, kind of govern knowledge, understanding, comprehension, recognition, and identification with things. Right? The Sadaka is very clearly doing that. The Manas gives the opportunity for us to even get that. Right? It gives us the sense organ for that. Basically, Sadaka digests our thoughts, our emotions, and our feelings into pure intelligence. Okay, into understanding of this world and experience, understanding this and integrating, I should say, understanding and integrating the experiences of this world. That's what Sadaka does. Okay, it kind of churns on it, digests. It's the main digestive organ of our mental experiences. And the end result, instead of ahara rasa, is pure intelligence, ahara intelligence. Okay, ahara buddhi, you could call it whatever you like. I'm making up Sanskrit words here, but essentially, this kind of prototype kind of intelligence that is really what Sankhya philosophy is asking for what the divinity, your consciousness, is asking for. This like beautiful, nourishing experience of the world that we live in. Right? That is a key of happiness. So the parts of our mind are all nourished by thoughts, feelings, and emotions. That's the food, right? And it gets processed. Our mental digestive system happens inside of the GI tract, we call it the manas. And that's kind of like the Jatara Agni. And then like the Bhuta Agnis and all the other Agnis, Dhatu Agnis, let's say, are like your Sadhaka Agni that refines it into the specialized essence of your experience of this world. So I want to mention there's some beautiful, one of my favorite parts of Dr. Laud's, this textbook is pages 194 and 195 when he talks about consciousness to matter and vice versa, and how Sadhaka Agni and Pilu Pitara Agnis are the key to this. It's a beautiful, I recommend you read that 3 times in a row to try to, take up what you can from that, because it's a lovely exposition and pretty clear. Now, what is important to see here is when we're looking at the Manavashrotas, when we're looking at manas with Sada Agni in it, and we're looking at these thoughts, feelings, emotions that are generated in our manas, if the Sadhaka Agni is functioning well and it's strong and you have Sama, any experience you encounter of this world gets turned into nourishment, good nourishment. That's pretty amazing, right? That is possible for all of us through yoga, through meditation, through high states of spiritual being. We can encounter anything in this world and be nourished by it. Right? That's the kind of experience that's spoken about with enlightened masters and teachers. Is nothing phases them, nothing throws them off, because everything is part of the world. They don't see it as different. They're one with all experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly. It all becomes good food for them, for their manas, because they see it in a different way, right? So the Patha Yoga, the Patha Ayurveda, is ideally, the ideal pinnacle of it is making your Sadhaka Agni so strong, so excellent, Sama, that you see the world as it is and are just internally nourished by it. Okay? Now, that's not our common experience, right? We all have a little bit of Vishma, the Tikshna, or Manda Sadhaka Agnis, or a combo of that, right? We're all struggling with that. We're all working towards that. We're all applying yoga techniques and trying to clarify and improve our Agni. We're giving our CCF meditation tea there, and we're giving so on, right? We're giving Hingashtak Turna to the mind, right? 2 different practices and all that. Now, let's talk about the interface between the mind and body, or consciousness and body. So going back to the Agnis, remember we just discussed that a few minutes ago, Pilu and Pitara Pak. Pitara especially now. Now, what essence of food goes through that final barrier of Pitara Agni? What's left? So the nutrients are pretty much tapped by then. But what's left? Of course, there's going to be some nutrients, but in Ayurveda, remember, all matter contains all matter contains all the gunas, it contains all this and this and this. It contains Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and it contains Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So the Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas of our nourishment, of our food, are finally worked upon by the Pitara Agni and go and integrate with the DNA, thus giving a direction for our consciousness that can be sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic in nature. That's how food finally, in the end, and nutrition finally affects our consciousness. Now, let's go on the other end. Okay, that's our DNA. That's matter. That's the most like subtle essence of matter before it becomes energy. Now, how about thoughts, feelings, and emotions? When they are worked upon by Sadhaka Agni, which is in your DNA, right? At least in Ayurveda, like, you know, we're theorizing here. I can't prove that, but but our consciousness, Sadhaka Agni, transforms the thoughts, feelings, and emotions. It's then going to interact with your DNA again, but go in the reverse, and then it's going to go through the DNA and then start interacting with the Pitara Agni and get translated into Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, which will then get translated through the Agnis. This now goes in reverse until it becomes physical nourishment for your cells and your tissues. And thus, what you think and your experience of the world becomes your physical body, and the nutrients that make up your physical body become your consciousness. Via Sadhaka Agni, let's say in the DNA, and the Pitara Agni of it. That's the interface. That's that interface between energy and matter, between mind and body. Okay, between psychosomatic experiencing in Ayurveda. And that's, Dr. Latz writes this beautifully in pages 194 to 195. Okay, so you can review that. But I tried my best to make an attempt to make sense of all this. But it's lovely. It's this beautiful interpretation. So just a little brain break. I have limited ability to probably answer questions about this, but I'll try.
No, I think it makes perfect sense. And what it makes me think of in particular is meat and the way that certain animals are farmed and the horrors that they have to endure. And then that energy, people intake that energy when they eat that meat, you know. So do you want to eat a cow that had a miserable life, or do you want to eat a cow that at least had a happy life? Mm-hmm.
And then the emotions you're experiencing about the dinner table when you're eating, right? Any different?
Now, if the cow was like an ascended master cow, I'm not trying to be flip, but
Sure.
The cow had good mental Agni and was processing that, then maybe it wouldn't have negative energy, even if it had those experiences.
Let me bring up a point here too that I think it's really important, because you know we're now going into the realm of possible of like, okay, vegetarianism, non-vegetarianism, and like kind of good and evil here. I always like to bring up a point of, well, if vegetarianism is the only way to go, and that's the only way to actually be sattvic and enlightened, then there will be no Tibetan masters. They're not vegetarian. They can't be. There'd be no Native American teachers that have any value, or indigenous people, right? So one thing I think is important to look at too is let's say when an indigenous person who's actually living traditionally, often there's prayers and connection with animals before the hunts and stuff like that. Perhaps they knew about this and connected and created that sattva through that, because they cared for what they're eating. They treated it with respect and so on. So I think there's a lot of good viewpoints that we can take to this. And ultimately it comes down to our consciousness, right? So as opposed to the act, it's more about the consciousness about the act, right? And like what's really behind it. So I think that's an important point. And that goes back again to the quality of the Sadhaka Agni. Right? Dr. Lad talks about how, you know, I've lived with the Gauri Babas in India that fish up flesh from the Ganga and eat it, right? And they're amazing, and it doesn't affect them that negatively, right? It's like these tantric and so on like that. If your Sadhaka Agni is so strong, you can eat anything and be fine, right? You won't get affected. It turns all that into sattva, right? That's a high state. I'm not saying I can do that by any means, but nonetheless, there's possibilities for this. And again, when we do food prayers, when we do where we consciousness with eating and present with our food and love our food and are grateful for food, that really starts changing the gunas of the food, right? It's a really key piece of eating. Okay, excellent. Let me see if there's anything else I want to. No, I think that's where we reached with the Agni. Let's now steer towards Ama, okay, the subject of Ama, and then kind of go into some of the other things that we want to talk about here. So with Ama, the key pieces is Ama really only forms when it hits Agni. When what hits Agni? When doshas or toxins, impurities, etc. hit Agni, then it'll affect the Agni. And when the Agni is trying to process whatever substance, emotion, stuff, dosha, if it gets vitiated, the Agni gets vitiated, a byproduct besides the Upadhatu, the Asthai Dhatu, Sthai Dhatu, and Mala, another potential byproduct of that interaction is Ama. Yeah? Everybody kind of get that? So Ama is a byproduct of faulty digestion. That's one of its definitions. Okay? But it's one I want to kind of start out with since we're just talking about Agni. So essentially, Ama is oftentimes a problem of faulty Agni. If your Agni is strong enough, it can destroy any Ama. You have to have some pretty strong Agni to turn mercury into a pure substance. But perhaps someone can do that. It's like, but nonetheless, the Ama, the quality of your Ama will your Agni will determine the Ama and how much is being created. Okay? So let's start off with that. And that leads us now to, and also one thing to keep in mind, where Ama forms is dependent on which Agnis are disturbed. So you can form Ama in your GI tract if Jatara Agni is disturbed. You can also form Ama in your tissues if Dhatu Agnis are disturbed. Now, you may have Ama in your Rasa Dhatu and your Mamsa Dhatu, but not in your Rakta or your Maja, because those Agnis happen to be good. Okay? And you can have Ama in your tissues, but not in your digestive tract. Your Jatara Agni could be good, but the Dhatu Agnis of certain tissues cannot be good. And thus, Ama will form in a tissue, but not show up in your digestive tract. Interesting. I like to use a good example. Is a common way that we find Ama is looking at people's tongues, coatings and stuff like that. Well, if someone drinks a lot of alcohol, you're not going to see that. The tongue's going to be clear. Why? Because alcohol is a really good stimulant for Agni. Right? So the Jatara Agni may be doing just fine because it's getting assistance from the alcohol, but is the Bhuta Agnis going to do so well? Or the different tissue Agnis? No. So the Ama deep in the body, in the system. Okay, in the tissues, possible Bhuta Agnis, possibly Sadaka Agni, different things like that, okay? So I think that's a good example of something where you're not going to see Ama in the usual places, but you're going to see it deeper in the tissues, okay? So that's an important statement. Ama is where Ama basically arises where the Dhatu Agnis are weakened or vitiated. Now, the next thing is Dr. Ladd has a lovely little section in this in the reading that talks about, he kind of narrows it down to from all the different, like Charaka, Sushruta, the different texts, you can kind of call 4 different definitions of Ama. Okay? And these 4 definitions of Ama are either undigested, unassimilated food stuff. And that pretty much is exactly the definition I just gave you. Basically, Agni is affected, thus creating undigested, unassimilated foodstuff, equaling Ama. Okay, so that's the most common definition you'll hear when someone writes about Ama, like undigested, unassimilated, fermented foodstuff. So that's the common one. Now, the next one is accumulated wastes are a cause or origin of Ama. So what are we talking about here? Anybody remember what the first sign and symptom of ama is? I don't know if some of you were in that talk I gave a while ago, module 2. The sutra begins, Shroto Roda. Shroto Roda, congestion of the shrotas. And in particular, it's going to be the shrotas, what we're talking about here is congestion of the excretory shrotas. So when there's congestion or improper elimination or accumulation of waste in stool, urine, or sweat, ama will form. Because that accumulation of waste is a great fertile soil for ama to generate. Okay? And that goes with the idea of like naturopathic physicians and stuff. If anybody's like into Lindlar's like natural philosophy and kind of the cores behind naturopathic medicine. So that's a definition of ama that's pretty akin with that. So accumulation of wastes. So that's number 2. Number 3 is another classical definition, dosho dushti. So disease is generated from dosha dushti. There's a sutra, dosha dushti janito vyadi. So the origin of disease is when the dosha amalgamates with the dhatu. So when doshas cause dushti, cause functional structural changes through the gunas, dushti, in the dhatus, how do they do it? Well, they have to get through the Agni, right? They have to mess with the Agni. So it's kind of like the first definition, but it's another way of looking at that first definition of Agni vitiation. Once the dosha comes in and starts amalgamating with the tissue, ama can be created there, right? Because the tissue is now going to be messed with. It's going to have dushti. It's going to have the gunas that aren't proper for it, and thus ama will be generated. That's number 3. And those, I would say, are the most classical definitions of ama. And then number 4 is one that is kind of just assumed, and that is going to be unresolved, repressed emotions. And this is where mental ama comes in. And now we can understand from what we talked about with sadhaka agni and manas agni, if they're not functioning so well, if we're not processing our emotions, they're not becoming pure intelligence, pure nourishment, ama can occur. And now we know too that it can get translated kind of through the DNA and through Pitar Agni into actual physical ama production. Right? So the mental ama is not just this energetic ama, but it's actual physical too.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What is the difference between an actual toxin that isn't being produced by faulty doshas or whatever, or bad agni, but is like because I found out recently I have mycotoxins. I have mold. I had mold exposure. So that's an external toxin that I have had too much of. My body's having a hard time processing it. So it's accumulated in the tissues, and now I'm trying to detox. So there's clearly ama going on there, but I'm just trying to understand the difference.
So you gave a perfect definition of doshic vitiation.
Oh, I did?
You did, because anything we encounter, any poison you encounter has to meet our defenses. If it's weak and our body is strong, it'll throw that out.
Yeah.
It'll, but if the toxin is very strong, it's going to defeat our defenses. It's going to defeat what? What are our defenses? Our agnis. And it's going to make the doshas imbalanced so that then they start spreading and attacking the agnis. And it's going to tag along with that. And it's going to essentially attack our agnis, lower our agnis, and thus ama is generated. So poisons and external toxins and stuff like that, they only work in the sense that they cause a negative reaction in your body.
So they aren't the same thing as ama. They're different, but they can create ama.
Yes, they create ama.
Okay.
Parasites, bacteria, viruses, poisons, they create ama.
Okay.
Once your body is unable to handle them and properly excrete them.
Right. I just got confused because sometimes ama is referred to as toxins, but I might also call it
Exactly.
toxin byproduct.
Exactly. Yeah, that'd be a better definition. You see, this is the thing, is the understanding of these things has been not so clear. Now, with further study and understanding, you can get much clearer about this. Ama isn't something that's thrown in your body. It's your reaction, the faulty reaction that causes disease from it. Yeah.
That makes
And
sense.
that's the truth. If you put something into your liver like these toxins, it's not that it's necessarily causing it. It's your liver's reaction. It's going to kill you. And how it's trying to handle it, and inflammation and all that. That's
Right.
just that's pathophysiology. But toxins are strong. That's why they're toxins,
Right.
and we can't deal with them. That's why they're poisons, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
True with parasites and worms then? Like if you have
Exactly.
acne, you'll just get rid of, you
Yep.
won't, okay.
They can't implant. They'll be defended. Your body, your immune system will attack them. But eventually, if you got a strong enough case of that, it weakens your immune system. And this is actually true on Western level. I've been doing parasitology for umpteen years, and when someone has parasites, always the immune system is on hyperdrive and it's weakened. And it's hard to detect it because it gives you false negatives because of that. Yeah. So it's so absolutely that's the key. And even if you can cohabitate with parasites quite well, if you keep your body extremely clean and keep the ama vacated out of your body. It's like, but they'll probably leave eventually because you're just not giving them food either, or a good environment. Okay, so let's quickly just take a little look at signs and symptoms of ama. So I get some refreshment here. So what are the key signs and symptoms of ama?
Fatigue and
Mm-hmm.
indigestion,
Mm-hmm. So indigestion, fatigue,
like a heavy feeling after you eat.
heaviness in general. Yep, good.
Low energy.
Mm-hmm.
Would lack of mental clarity, would that be?
Absolutely, yes. Mental confusion.
Continuously getting sick.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Weakened system. So, and I'll give you a little reference. There's a convenient little one place in the volume 2, page 201. Okay, there's generalized signs and symptoms of ama, and that goes from an old sutra. It's basically Shroto Roda, Bala Brahmsa, Gaurava, Anila Mudita, Alasya, Apakti, Sangha, Aruchi, Klama, Moha, Parushyam. Basically clogging of the channels, Shroto Roda. Fatigue, that's Bala Brahmsa. Right? Heaviness or malaise, Gaurava. Anila Mudita, this is interesting, abnormal flow of vata. That means kind of like restlessness, kind of feeling agitated. Right? Malaise, just general sense of unwellness, kind of constantly feeling sick. Indigestion, stagnation of energy flow, sangha, right? That's one of the issues with when we look at Shrota, sangha, right? Stagnation. But that's also stagnation mentally too. Lack of taste or perverted taste in the mouth and poor appetite. Right? That's a sign of ama. Sexual debility, klama, right? Low libido, essentially. Mental confusion or unclarity, moha. And a feeling of uncleanliness. You just don't feel clean. Your hair roots are kind of itchy and all this stuff. Those are all signs. There's more, but those are the classic signs of ama. So being familiar with that is very, very important. Let me quickly go up to a share because I want to show you where on the forms. On the intake form we've created, there's a section that kind of talks about that. Let me just get down here. See these boxes here? These boxes are here for a reason on your intake form. Okay, and I hope you keep those on your own intake forms because they're so nice. It's like you email to a client, they can fill out these boxes. This gives you ideas of, do they have vata, classic vata symptoms? Do they have classic pitta symptoms? Do they have classic kapha symptoms? Now, what's this? Ooh, that's pretty convenient. Not all, but a good deal of the symptoms of ama. Okay, so this is a nice little reminder for you, and one that they can fill out and you can discuss on the subject of ama. So when you're determining ama, because it's too easy sometimes to just look at someone's tongue and be like, determine if they have ama or not. That's not a good enough assessment. You do need to look for these other qualities and these qualities I'm looking for. Okay, so, and of course, you can get more specific when you start talking about questions about dhatus and shrotas, which is way longer down the line for you, okay?
What can I have a question?
Yeah,
What
please.
when it says throat, eyes, ears, chest, lungs, what?
Oh, that this is just other areas of question, like if someone has issues about these specific organs.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
But this is the ama section right here. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So that's that. I want you just to show you where on the form and what it's there to jog your memory and also the client's memory. So if they're showing that way you'll know if they have basic symptoms of ama. Okay. So what are you going to do about ama? Well, what are the gunas of ama?
It shares a lot with kapha guna.
It does, yeah. So you know how Agni is like pitta minus the water? Well, ama is kapha minus the positive aspects of kapha, essentially. Okay? So look at our definitions. Low Agni, dosha dushti, right? Accumulated wastes. So do you want to make sure that their wastes are flowing properly? Yes. So you got to give them something that will either help them sweat properly, poop properly, or pee properly. Essentially, diaphoretics for sweating, diuretics for peeing, and laxatives for pooping, right? Or some sort of like modifications, right? We'll get to that down the line. So I'm not going to go into detail about all that right now, but I already gave you some things. But the other things are essentially low Agni. They all kind of, the dosha dushti, and then the mental ama, the mental unresolved feelings and emotions is mental Agni, right? Manas Agni, Sadaka Agni. So what are we going to do? We can, if we determine that all the Agni is really just coming from the mind and they're showing that kind of symptoms, well, yoga has so much good things, meditation, yoga, mantra, ritual, whatever tools you have in those realms, give that to them. Psychology, yogic psychology. So to counseling, you have them to go to counseling, etc. Those are all that from that realm. On a more body level for like low Agni and dosha dushti, well, we have to deal with the Agni, don't we? So anything we can do to strengthen the Agni, whether it's Jatara Agni, and that's if there's ama in the digestive system, those same remedies that work for strengthening your Agni, especially taken after a meal, because that's a good time to burn ama. It's called ama pachan, can be used to burn the ama. But you're going to have to emphasize that hot, sharp quality of pitta, right? Light quality of pitta and Agni to really burn that Agni off. Okay? But basically, all the things I suggest to you for the different types of Agni issues can all work pretty well to burn Agni too.
Would you tell them then to modify their diet a little for a while, like no dairy, no meat, stuff like that?
Yeah, so that's the next thing is developing an appropriate anti-ama diet, which if you want to be generic about it, you could just say do a kapha reducing diet. But if you want to get a little more specific, then yeah, you give them all the basically you don't want heavy, you don't want sticky, you don't want so on and so on. It's all the opposite qualities, and give them a diet that's more like Agni's gunas, light, drying, a little spicy and pungent, right? Sharp. Okay.
I think the food combining thing is the hardest thing for people, especially in our culture. Like,
Sure.
dairy shouldn't be combined, but everybody likes to eat fruit with yogurt, and
And now one thing too, just before we get too far, remember food combining, you have to look at the ancestral background too. If they've been eating this for generations, they probably can deal with it as fine. Food combining is very particular to what people have gotten used to, right? That's an important aspect of food combining. So I wouldn't worry about it too much unless if they're showing like indigestion about certain food combinations, well, yeah, then they really need to listen. But if they're not, and they're showing no signs of like, hey, I've been eating this for a while and I'm fine with it, never have an issue, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But with that being said, simplicity is always the way to go. If you want to burn ama, you want to cleanse, simple, less ingredients. And that's where food combining can really matter. And it makes a lot of sense. Okay. Yeah. So simplicity is always the way to go with that. Or just have them do a mono diet fast. That's an easy way, right? Burn. Now, what I'm telling you kind of applies especially to ama that's generated, we talked about yoga and the mind, but ama is generated in a digestive system. When ama's in the deeper tissues, this is where you need panchakarma or you need specialized herbal treatment. Certain herbs have an affinity for the agnis of certain tissues. Like kutki has affinity for fat tissue. Tulsi or ginger and tulsi have affinity for ama in the rasa dhatu. So on. Okay, so that's more advanced work. But for your level, working on the digestive system, you're well equipped for that. Okay. So that kind of like leaves us about
I had a question.
yeah, go ahead.
This makes sense.
Sure.
If my Agni is low, then my immune system's probably not functioning as well as it should be. Probably, right?
Possibly. In certain aspects of it, in certain areas of your immune system, possibly.
Okay. Yeah. Or it's overtaxed. In the Western, you provide medicine, but sometimes the medicine is a little bit toxic in and of itself, right? So like the doctor prescribed me this nasal spray that has antibiotics, antifungal, and a little bit of steroids, and it's very, very low dosage, but I think the antifungal in it is actually a very strong medicine, right?
Sure.
So it seems to be helping the sinus stuff, which hopefully, if there is a fungal infection that's causing some of the mold stuff, then hopefully it'll help me in the long run, but it's probably taxing my system because there's other toxins that I now have to process because I have this toxin that I'm taking to kill the other toxin. Does that make sense? So
yeah, absolutely. It's just like taking neem.
Taking neem?
Yeah. You don't want to take that all the time. It'll make you sterile. It'll make you all kinds of things. It's like it's not especially in high doses. But you know what? If you have a really bad infection, you want to take high doses of it.
Okay, so in Ayurveda, sometimes
of course, we have plenty of things that can kill you if they can for long enough. Yeah, sure. It's like, but again, but you got to weigh the costs here. It's like it may kill you if you take it for 10 years, but a sinus infection could kill you much quicker. It's like,
right. So like if somebody has cancer and they're getting like chemotherapy, that's possibly causing more ama. But so how would you support somebody?
You can deal with that later as long as the person's alive, right?
Okay.
Ama's not going to matter if you're dead.
That's true.
Yes. So we have to take our choices, right? We have to first get people out of acute care. And in Ayurveda, it's called shamana and shodhana. Shamana always needs to come first. Shamana is palliation. You need to get them out of a life-threatening situation. Then you do shodhana, purification, but only when they're strong enough. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
all right.
So go for it. Take those antibiotics now. I had to take a major antibiotics and antivirals a few weeks ago. I had a serious infection and stuff, so it's okay. And now I can get that out of my system.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're doing better.
Yes, me too. Yeah, it worked. It worked like a charm, so it's good. Okay. So let me just talk a little bit about the approach to ama, of course, is burning ama. When we get to the Chikitsa module, we'll talk about that a lot more. Okay, but as long as now it's the gunas of the ama and the gunas of Agni, and that's what you're working with here, is how to balance that. It's strengthen the Agni or particular Agnis to burn that ama. That's how you get out of that situation. Right? Essentially, Ayurveda is Agni Chikitsa. All medicine is Agni Chikitsa to one level or another. Okay? The next thing I want to speak about, and this is now, since we're running low on the class, so I just want to give you the stepping stones of how to work with this stuff, okay? And give you a little bit of particulars, because this is now about lists. The latter portion of the Ama chapter, right, that you've read, you'll notice the last pieces of it are what's talked about Sama and Nirama dosha, and then malas. Okay, so the main, really the important points that we have left here are how to recognize Sama and Nirama malas. Okay, and how to kind of and how Sama and Nirama dosha. So can you identify when there's Ama being generated as well as the dosha is out of whack, but it's generating Ama, or it's not generating Ama? That's one thing. And then how can you tell if the purisha, the stool, the urine, or sveda is backed up or causing ama, right? Because that's one of the definitions of ama we gave, is backup of the of the wastes, right? Accumulation of wastes. So how can we tell that they've accumulated and are now generating ama, or they're not, that they're still healthy and functioning well? So what you're going to see is lists of signs and symptoms on those pages of when it's something sama or when something's near ama that's without ama. Okay, and let me go through some common examples. So, for instance, vata. Vata without ama, and it can still be affecting you negatively, and you could still be getting gunas and dushti and stuff, but you're not going to see constipation when vata is near ama. There won't be accumulation of wastes. Your agni will have that more dry quality. It'll be more like normal. It won't be horribly affected, like especially with indigestion type symptoms. There'll be a lot of like clarity and lightness. But this is the type of vata. It's like someone's just super spacey. They're just out there. Vata is really kind of deranged, but they may not have a lot of ama. I've seen this a lot with, for instance, I'm going to make a joke at some raw foodists I've seen like that. It's like they've done that for years. They're out of it, but they're not, but there's an ama, like the body's relatively pure. That's not the case in a lot of cases. The agnis can be really badly affected by that too. But some people, agni's fine, they're doing okay, but they're obviously the vata is vitiated. Now, vata that is nirama, one way you can test if it's nirama is the best way to pacify vata without ama is oleation, abhyanga, oil massage. It works like a charm. It has all the qualities to soothe vata. So if oleation, oil massage with just regular oils works well, good. They probably don't have much ama. Now, if you give them oleation and they're not feeling better, they start feeling not so good, then they have ama. That's a good sign. Okay, that's a good test. So sama vata will show up with constipation, bloating, dry skin, low agni, okay, because agni is going to be affected in order to create ama. Mind stupor, fogginess in the mind, kind of generalized body ache, kind of pain in the abdomen or vague, kind of like light pain, colicky pain, okay, mobile pains in the abdomen. And oleation will aggravate symptoms, as well as cloudy and rainy days. These are like folks that are affected by the weather, like if it's heavy, snowy, rainy, and that's why, like arthritis, for instance, arthritis is called ama vata. That's its name. And a classic sign and symptom is, it's rainy, cloudy, snowy out. My body's starting to ache and hurt because of the ama in the joints. The agni of the joints is affected and producing ama. That's ama vata. Okay. And then pitta, normal healthy pitta, well, let's say nirama pitta, will show up in like yellowish or pinkish reddish discoloration. Kind of a more kind of pitta odor, kind of nothing too strong, but just kind of like a little sour smell. Pungency, kind of taste of pungency or sourness in the mouth. There'll be more of the hot and liquid kind of quality. An increased appetite, really stimulating agni, so you'll be really voraciously hungry. No coating on the tongue will be seen there. But yet someone could be really aggravated, they could be really aggro, kind of intense emotionally and so on. And I want to point out that oftentimes when they have ama conditions, you're going to see it a lot in the mental emotional realm. That's also something to look at. Whereas the sama is going to be a very bodily thing. So sama pitta, there'll be bad odors. There'll be more kind of greenish color or dark yellow coloration. There'll be a sour, bitter taste in the mouth and or smells in the body. There'll be this heavy, stagnant, kind of coagulated, thick kind of feeling, especially in the upper end of digestion, like I talked about with the Tikshna Agni possibility. Acid indigestion, fermentation, kind of belching, heartburn. Okay, so these are all kind of things. Nausea, fatigue, fevers, rashes, these kind of things. And then kapha. Now, kapha is a little tricky because it's so like ama, right? But how do you determine if kapha has ama or it doesn't? So if kapha is increased but it doesn't have ama, you're going to see more the liquidy, watery quality, okay? As opposed to the sticky, stringy, thick, cloudy qualities of gunas of kapha. Okay? Kapha will be, they may have some congestion, but it's easy to come out. It doesn't stick. It doesn't have that oily quality. It kind of easy to come out. It's not like sticky or thick congestion. It's more like flowing, you know, like nose is flowing, dripping, etc. No smell. Appetite's okay. It's not horribly affected. The mouth, there's easy burping. There's no like hard difficulty to burp. No blockage to it. The mouth is okay. You don't have any bad tastes. Whereas ama with kapha is going to double up on itself and show really those heavy, thick, cloudy, stringy qualities. It'll be very difficult to remove out of the body, expectorate. So it's a congestion. You just can't cough up. You just can't get out of your nose or the sinuses. Foul smells. There'll be smells associated with it likely. It's going to be hard for you to smell because you'll be so congested, of course, but a practitioner can maybe see that. Appetite will definitely be suppressed. So manda agni in full here. And difficulty burping, or just kind of the stuckness with both gas as well as burping. Okay? And colds, congestion, coughs, but kind of like persistent, heavy. Okay, so that'll be the difference. Oftentimes it's hard to tell with kapha. It's the trickiest because they share so much of the gunas. Okay, so that's one way that you could start determining if someone is ama or not. Now, most people are going to be having ama. It's very, very common, right? And the level of ama is important, right? Because if someone has a lot of ama, even if they have a lot of pitta going on, you're going to have to burn the ama first before dealing with the pitta. And that's a contradiction of terms there. You're going to have to use a lot of the gunas that are going to stimulate their pitta to burn off the ama. But first things first, you're going to have to do that. Now, I wouldn't use anything too strong, but fasting is usually a good way to do that. Yeah, go ahead.
If this, I missed the class last week and haven't caught up with it yet, so if this was covered, I apologize. I was looking through the materials. There's often talk about analyzing tongue and urine and feces.
Yeah.
But what about nasal discharge? Because that's, I mean, I would assume there's healthier snot and not so, I mean, in a Western.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was doing with this a little bit, but we didn't go into that in full detail at this point. Down the line. down below.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
But there isn't a particular nasal analysis. You know, that I'm going to leave towards in the next section when you go over shrotas, or later on in your training when you go over shrotas. You look at pranavara shrotas.
Okay.
That'll
Great.
be there. Okay. So I'm going to be leaving you off in a little bit here, but let me give you kind of a little direction of what to work with. So we have in the latter part, and I'll get to this at another portion. Okay, we still have the next two classes, the final two classes of this series are going to be on dosha vijnana, okay, which we're going to review dosha. And I believe I'm going to have a bit of time to go into mala vijnana during that class, okay, because that's going to be pretty straightforward and a lot of review. Whereas the last class will be dhatu vijnana, and that's in that chapter is where the disorders of Parisha, Mutra, and Sveda all come in there, okay, into like Pariksha for that. So in the next two classes, we'll cover that in more detail. But in the meantime, I'd like you to definitely finish up this Agni chapter and look at Sama and Nirama Parisha, Mutra, and Sveda. Okay, they're just lists. And it just shows you. And in that case, it's going to say it's either everything's flowing fine and it's healthy, or it's not. Okay, or it has ama in it and it's congested, which is again one of the definitions of ama. So look at that and get a good clear sense, because when you're asking on the intake forms, there's a section on your session form. Let me quickly show that to you. Okay, so I'll leave you with that. Your Rugna Patrikam, it's going to have that. There's a section right under appetite, digestion, energy level here. It's sweat, urination, and bowels. And I could put a couple like reminders here. Scent for sweat, amount and quality of it, okay? And what you're really looking for, oftentimes people know because of the scent, the odor, as well as the staining ability, coloration that they may get. That's really what's the easiest way to find that out. And amount. Urination, color is important, and qualities of it. And also frequency is important. And also, and bowel, we're going to get to the concept of koshta when I go over this in the future class. But bowels, basically, time of day, how well formed it is, basically, description of it, frequency, okay? Agni type is just overall Agni type that you're assessing, right? So that kind of concludes that section for you. So go over the Sama and the Rama. And then in the other classes, probably next class, we're going to delve into the disorders of and kind of Parisha Pariksha and also stool analysis from the Ashtavidya, urine analysis from Ashtavidya, and then we'll talk about sweat too. Okay, we'll kind of do that all in one bit. Sound good? Okay, so good luck with the assignments and so on. And the next class is going to be, they're going to stutter the classes here, just so you know, the next class is in January. Okay, and then there's going to be, I believe, another one in February. So it's going to be a long break in between. One thing, because the holidays are coming, okay?
So this is our last class for December?
I believe so. As per the schedule right now, the next class will be in January 3rd, I believe. It'll be on that Thursday. And then the next class goes in February. I think they're still working it out. You guys are starting to stutter the classes with that. So in the meantime, study. Get ready so that you've studied up very well the precursor material for what we covered for your final exam, which will be posted after the class 10. I'm probably not going to do so much review this time around, only because I'd like to utilize class 10 to actually teach you like the Dhatu Vijnanam. And there's only one more chapter left in the book after that. That's Shroto Vijnanam, which that's later. We're going to get into that when we go to Chikitsa for Shrotas. I'll just combine it because it makes more sense there. And then the next module, Chikitsa, we're going to be gathering all this information, and we're just going to be talking about basically how do you treat this from your scope of practice. How do we treat this? What are the strategies of treatment? And then I'm going to start giving you, and we're going to get into the basic 20 herbs and herbology. Now, one thing I'd like you to start thinking about too is review Module 2, especially the last two classes, the Rasayanas, the Ayurvedic Superfoods classes, Rasayanas, and more importantly, the the spices, herbs and spices, because that goes over already about 5 of the most basic that are on that list of 20, okay, like ginger, coriander, and stuff like that, okay? Because in Chikitsa module, I'm going to try to cover all 20. Over 2 classes and go into detail and we'll review like these formulas like Trika 2, Hingashtak and all that, okay?
What
Great.
book will we need for the Chikitsa?
3, book 3, volume 3. So order it now.
Yeah,
So,
no, I got it already.
okay.
Will this help as well or not?
Yoga Verse, oh, it's useful for sure. That's a great book to have around. It's not necessary because I'll give you a lot of the information, but it's a great start. Now, I know that those of you that are going to go into Ayurvedic practitioner program, there will be an herbology module. So we'll go deeper and deeper into things then. Okay. Okay. Well, take care, everyone. It's been a pleasure, as always. Study
you.
well.
Merry
Thank
Christmas.
you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas
too.
to you all.
Yeah. Enjoy your holidays.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Ay, Dios.